Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Goaltending, where your why is bigger than your excuses. Today, we're going to talk about learning how to win by learning to fail. Super important topic, but I know one of the things that held me back for the longest time was fear of failure. And it's something a lot of us deal with, battle with, and face on a daily basis. So I wanted to bring that to you. I'll talk about how we learn from failure so we can learn how to win. Thank you all for tuning in, allowing me to be a part of your journey. As always, find a takeaway and make sure you go like, subscribe, comment with your thoughts and questions to join the conversation. And make sure you're sharing it, like get it to other people, help them grow, right? Let's get right into it. For me, earlier on in life, I faced multiple failures, multiple things that I viewed as failure at least. But then I have learned over time that some of the things that I viewed as failure in the moment weren't actually failure. They were setbacks. They were challenges. There were things that, had I given up in the moment, would have become a failure. And so one of the first and really just fundamental things to understand is you don't truly fail unless you quit, unless you stop trying. Okay? Because those setbacks, those challenges, those things that make us feel like we failed in the moment, if we learn from them and apply the learning to get better, to take that takeaway and to continue trying, we don't fail. We keep moving forward with new knowledge, with new information from what we faced in that challenge. Give you a few examples today. So when I was in high school, my freshman, sophomore, junior year, I was pretty much C's and D's. I did not really find a passion for learning yet. I did not feel committed. I didn't want to be there. What I really wanted was to play sports, and I'll get into that as one of my examples as well. And I struggled. I wasn't trying, but I also was just not finding a way to relate, connect with the content. Part of it also, I needed a certain kind of teacher to help get points across to me. But I also was just looking for something that I truly saw and understood the reason behind the importance of learning it. And it wasn't until my senior year that I found that. So I ended up joining Future Business Leaders of America my senior year. I took an entrepreneurship and a business management class. And those opened my eyes to why all of the rest of the learning was important. I realized also as I was nearing that senior year, what is next after high school? My high school it was a college prep place. I went to Louisville Male High School in Louisville, Kentucky. And it was set up to prepare me for college. But I didn't have external influences that were really, truly pushing me toward a college path. I didn't have a ton of guidance saying that's the path that I need to go, or really know what I was doing. And I didn't have a huge plan after high school. But I hit senior year and realized this is about to be over and it's time to figure it out. I'm either going to college or it's time to figure out what I'm doing for work. And I really fell in love with what I was learning in entrepreneurship and business management. I was like, oh, this is how I create value. This is where I can find ways to make money, is what I was thinking about at the time. But truly, the way we make money is by creating value. And I've learned that over time, and the importance of just creating value. The money will come if you can create enough value. But I ultimately, we'd say, I failed. I had a terrible GPA those first 3 years. My senior year, once I found that passion, once I found a why, once I found something I enjoyed learning about, and realized hey, it's time to get your act together because this is about to be over. So you got to figure out what's next. I got all A's and 1 B my senior year on a roll. What's the difference between freshman, sophomore, junior year of high school in that senior year? Like, what was it? I could have looked at myself as, I mean, technically not a failure. Technically, the season D's are passing. But also, like, is just going for good enough? Is that success in your mind? Just good enough? Because in my mind, at least now, just good enough is failure to me. I want more. I want to create value. I want to help. And so if I'm only going for the bare minimum of what's necessary to get by, I'm not truly fulfilling my potential. I'm not living up to that, what I can truly do to create value and help people. Right? And so it started there. I found that passion and I decided to go to college. I ended up going to college. My undergrad, I ended up doing an accounting, and I finished with let's go back to high school. I finished with a 2.6 GPA. And if it wasn't for honor roll that last year, it'd have been much lower than that. If it wasn't for all those A's and 1B, my GPA would have been significantly lower if I stuck to those C's and D's that I had the first 3 years. But I finished with a 2.6. Now I go to college. My undergrad ended up studying accounting, and I finished with a 3.4 GPA. Now it was real. Like, now I'm trying. I see the reason behind what I'm doing. Like, I'm enjoying what I'm learning about because I see how I can use this to create value. And there were still classes, like there's a few classes here and there I didn't do great in. I had a few C's sprinkled in, especially for history classes. Never been my strong suit on that. We got a 3.4 GPA. Then master's degree ended up coming around later. And that was not something I ever thought I was going to do when I was younger. But I go and get my master's degree and get a 3.6 GPA. But I improved academically, and I would still look at my master's program as an area where I needed to improve, but not from an academic standpoint. And we won't say failure, but we'll say the challenge and the setback. And something I had to learn from is that when I was doing my high school and my undergrad, I was, we'll say single. I wasn't married. I didn't have kids. I was doing extracurricular activities that I had to balance my academics with. But during my master's program, I was now married. I now had a newborn baby. I was also working full time and balancing a full-time job in addition to a heavy class workload. So now I've got like these bigger life priorities that I wasn't having to balance or prioritize when I was going for my undergrad and in high school, right? So there's a lot more going on. And while I improved academically, it came at the sacrifice of things that were even more important. I would say I was doing like fairly well with work. I did start to, fall off in terms of being engaged with coworkers, especially like there would be a lot of like post work events to build camaraderie and to like give the team opportunity to grow and hang out. I couldn't participate in those things. I either had homework or had to go to class or needed to get home and spend some time with my family because of all the other things I was doing. So I started to feel less connected at work full time. But then also my wife is feeling like a single parent because I'm getting up before my baby's even awake to get to work. After work, I'm going straight to class. By the time I get home from class, that was 3 nights a week, my baby's already in bed when I get home. My wife was handling everything on her own. And that was 3 nights a week of classes. But then the nights that I didn't have class, I'm coming home and I have homework. And I cared about doing so well in the program. I couldn't see that like I was sacrificing the more important thing. Like I was going to the master's program to improve my life, the value that I can create to help my family grow, right? Yet what I was doing was coming at a sacrifice to them because I wasn't giving them just the time and the presence that they needed in that moment. And it came down to my wife actually probably halfway through the program telling me that she was unhappy. And that completely breaking my heart and opening my eyes to something that I was completely blind to because I was like, I'm doing this for my family. I'm working this hard for my family. but I wasn't present for them while I was doing it. They needed me at home. They needed the presence at home. And so through that, I could have looked at it as a failure, but what I did is I learned from it. I adjusted how I was approaching school. I still did the work that was needed to be done, but I started to do less work, less focus. I accepted, like, hey, maybe I don't get an A on this project. Maybe I don't get an A in this class, because I would rather sacrifice the time I would be spending on improving and perfecting the assignment that I needed to work on, or whatever it was, or studying to be more knowledgeable. That time needed to go to my family. And I started to adjust that. I started to improve. I made it through that program, and I still got my master's, and I still finished with my best GPA of my academic career of a 3.6. And that was such a crucial learning moment of the importance of priorities. Like, yes, in deciding to go after the master's, I was choosing to make that the lead priority for a season, but it didn't mean that my other priorities could just completely go to the wayside and not touch them at all. Every other priority still needed to be important and still needed to have time made for it, just maybe in a more moderate capacity. So that's the school example. Now, basketball wise, I said I wanted to play sports in high school, but I didn't make the team all 4 years of high school. So I tried out every single year, didn't make the team. And I remember just being let down and broken and feeling like I wasn't good enough. And I failed. I failed to make it all 4 years of high school, and I could have looked at that as a failure. But every year that I didn't make it, I signed up for an AAU team or some kind of basketball league or summer camps that I could be involved in to consistently be playing and working on improving. And although I didn't reach the point that I made it in high school, I improved, and I continued to maintain that passion. And I said, okay, I'm gonna try out in college anyway, because I wanted to play in college. That was my goal. And I kept trying. And then I didn't make it my freshman year. And then I joined the Kentucky National Guard, and I went to basic and AIT my sophomore year and missed the tryout for my sophomore year. And then I made the junior varsity team my junior year. And I actually made the team. That in itself, that's the accomplishment, right? And I kept trying. And then my senior year, there ended up not being a JV team when I tried out. So it was like, this is the last tryout, and I either make varsity or I don't. And I didn't make it. But because I continued to work on it and improve, first off, I looked at making the JV team my junior year a success. But I kept trying. And my coach remembered that effort, and he calls me up later after I was cut from making varsity my senior year. There ended up being some injuries, some academic ineligibilities, and they needed help. And coach called me up and said, do you still want to play? And so I ended up getting on the varsity team my senior year and getting to play. But had I looked at all of the times I didn't make the team as true failures, and I didn't learn from them, and I didn't say, all right, what do I need to keep improving? How do I hone this craft that I am passionate about and love and enjoy, and I want to play? How do I get better? How do I keep working on it? And so it was consistent practice of continuing to play, of doing intentional drills to improve on the things that I knew would help me, that I knew that I was not as good in or deficient in, or knew that if I wanted to play on varsity, I knew that I was not as good as other players, and for my position that I needed to step up. And I focused on those things, and I kept improving. I didn't play a significant amount of time. I got into 3 games and played a few minutes here and there, but I made it because I continued to try, and I learned, and I did not look at it as just failure, even though it hurt and even though I was broke down many times. Right. And then from a business side of things, like I said, in high school, I fell in love with entrepreneurship and business management. I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur as I got older. The reason I got an accounting degree in my undergrad is because I wanted to understand the language of business to be a more effective business person. And then my master's had an entrepreneurial focus, my master's in business with an entrepreneurial focus. And I actually started 2 businesses during that entrepreneurship program. One was actually for the program and one was personal. Both of those businesses have since closed. I've had 2 other businesses that I've started after that have both closed. So I've had 4 businesses that I've started and closed just between 2017 to now. So over the last 8 years, I've opened and closed 4 businesses. And I have 1 active business now that is still prospering and doing well, and I'm continuing to push. In every one of the closed businesses, I have learned new things from. I've grown from. So none of those business closures are really a failure because they're helping me to be successful in the business that I'm operating and working on now. Right? And so just look at what things in your life have you either thought about as a failure or not taking the time to reflect on and say, where was the lesson? Like, what can I learn and take away from this to be better as I move forward? So that I can apply those lessons to succeed, to get the win. Because that's what we're coming for, is the win. But we have to realize life, if we're looking at life as a big game, just because we have one of those setbacks, that just means that we had like a bad possession, a bad play. And we can allow that to impact the rest of our game, the rest of our life. Or we look at, all right, what mistake did I make? We learn from it, we shake it off, and we keep playing the game to the best of our ability with that new learned lesson from the setback or the challenge. Because it's not a failure until we get to the end of the game. If we get to the end of the game and we didn't give it our absolute best, if we didn't play to the best of our potential, that's when it's a failure. But if you learn from the challenge, you apply the lesson, you keep trying, you ultimately end up with a win at the end of the game. So take that. Go get your win. Please make sure you like, subscribe, comment with your thoughts and questions on what you're doing to get the win or the failures that you've learned something from. Share those things and let's grow.